Eucharist is a sacrament that flows from the free, self-giving love of Jesus. It creates and sustains that same self-giving love in each of us. Chris Quam, an attorney, and Christine Quam, a teacher, share with us the ways in which their relationship has brought forth that self-giving love in each of them. And as parents of Benjamin, they find even greater depth and focus in their self-giving love. Here then is their story.
So one way that we understand Eucharist is that it's Jesus's free, self-giving love. To choose love even when it's hard. So in our marriage, we try, not always perfectly, but we try to share that same free, self-giving love. So there are kind of 3 snapshots in our relationship to show how we try to do that.
So the first we'll share is from when we were dating. We began our relationship long distance. I was in Washington, D.C. in grad school, and Christine was in undergrad at Notre Dame. We both graduated and didn't want to do long distance anymore. We both were definitely in love with each other, but wanted to know if it was just something that was really good every 4 to 6 weeks when we were able to see each other, or if we were gonna be more than that. So I agreed, or I told Christine that I would move to wherever she picked for grad school. And ultimately that was not Washington, D.C. where I was, which meant I ended up leaving a job offer. I went to a place with no connections. I had a one-way bus ticket to Boston and 2 suitcases and a Craigslist apartment sublet for a summer with too little money in the bank, and I was really lucky, and 8 weeks later found a job with 2 weeks to go before all zeros. But it was,
It was the right choice.
It was risk, and it was the right choice, and it was for her and for us.
So then about 2 or 3 years after that, the relationship did work, which we were very happy about, and Chris proposed, and I said yes, and we set a wedding date for about 1.5 years later. And partway through the engagement, basically I panicked. Sharing your whole life with someone, making that kind of permanent commitment is scary no matter what. But then we had the added factor that Chris has cystic fibrosis. So when I looked into the future, I knew there would be decline in lung function, a 98% chance that we would be infertile as a couple, and that was really scary. And I was nervous about making that commitment. So at the time I was in a Master's of Divinity program, so I had the blessing of going on a retreat. And over the course of the retreat, I decided this is when I need to figure out whether or not I can proceed with this engagement and this marriage in spite of my own fear. And the passages that the retreat director gave me to pray about that weekend were about God's perfect love. And that perfect love casts out fear. And so in the course of the retreat, I realized that even though my love was imperfect, and I had fear, and I had some selfishness there, that if I was open to it, and if I let myself, I could be a channel for God's perfect love. And so that required maybe some question marks on my part, and choosing something that was hard, but choosing what was right out of my love and out of God's love.
And then as a result of that, we ended up struggling with infertility. We ended up deciding as a couple that adoption was the answer for us in our effort to become parents. And after a long, hard process that involved a lot of love and patience and tolerance from both of us, we did successfully adopt, which has been amazing, but difficult at times, as any parent would know. And a good example of that is teaching Benjamin, our son, how to sleep, and the sleepless nights that often happen. And in our way, we had very regimented, like, your turn, my turn, your turn, sort of patterns set up for night times. And, at some point that kind of doesn't matter anymore when at 3 a.m. he's been up screaming for 2 hours and it's time to give Christine a break. And I remember one time in particular where I'm not sure who was crying harder. And, knowing that school, Christine is a teacher, knowing that school was coming in 2 hours, like, okay, take a break, go to sleep. I'm not sleeping anyway, so, yeah.
And then I think it would be completely remiss to not mention in the context of adoption that the best example of freely chosen self-giving love, I think besides Jesus, is a birth parent. That Benjamin's birth mother is so profoundly generous in her self-giving love to know that what was best for Benjamin might not be what was easiest for her. So her choice gets so much respect from us and is really a way better example than anything we could give of self-giving love. So we're very grateful to her and to all birth parents. But to end on kind of a lighter note about parenting and forgetting about yourself for love of another, I'm a pretty self-conscious person, so in public I'm always very worried about what are people thinking, what is my image here, but that has to go out the window when you're with a 1.5-year-old. So on the way home from work and daycare a few weeks ago, we had to stop at the store to get something, and we ended up in a very long line, which Benjamin was having none of. He did not want to be in the line, he did not want to be in my arms, he wanted to be running around and playing with his dog at home. So he started to lose it. And I knew that as much as it would mortify me, the only thing that was going to keep him calm was to start singing. So in the middle of the grocery store line, I'm doing Old MacDonald and moo 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 and ba 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 and cluck cluck cluck, and just I didn't care what other people thought because that was how I needed to show love to Benjamin. And it's hard. It's not always easy to have the freely given self-love that Jesus does, but that's one of the reasons I would say that we continue to participate in the Eucharist and that we belong to a community of faith, and receiving the Eucharist is what strengthens us to keep loving each other and to do that as well as we can.